good evening, and welcome to another edition of the Gooner Ramble and Arsenal Fan TV podcast. Tonight's show is Behind Enemy Lines, where we interview a prominent Tottenham Hotspur fan, and his name is at Windy COYS.
Wankers. Sorry, carry on.
He'll be coming on in just a few moments, but before we do that, I want to introduce the boys. We've got Jasper. How you doing, mate?
Good evening, sir.
Are you recovered from your Tourette's?
Yeah, I've just got a slight cough. For some reason, it keeps it's kicking in at strange moments.
Yeah, okay. All right, and we've got Moh.
How's it going, mate? You alright?
You're right, freshly back from Bayern Munich.
Anything but fresh, but I'm back.
Good stuff. All right, so before we go into the North London derby, let's just quickly round up yesterday's game. Mo, you were there. Tell us your thoughts.
Well, proud of the lads, to be honest with you. They did do very well, and going there and getting a draw is not a bad result for the team. I do think they are the best football club in the world currently. They are the best team in the world, and we did well, but I just can't separate the fact that we really had a lot of bad luck with decisions in this tie in the Champions League. From the first leg, that Robin dive again, having Szczęsny sent it off, it wasn't a penalty. I've watched it many times. I've paused it. I've seen him stand on the ground and look around, and then take a split out from underneath him himself. And again, he did it twice, and he's done it 3 times. He's got 2 penalties. I don't understand why he's not the boy that cried wolf. Why people continue to fall for it. But just gutted. That leaves a bit of taste in my mouth. As for the rest of the Bayern Munich team, I've got no problem at all. I think they're great players, a really good team, and when people play football in the right way, you think, you wish them every success. But because of Iron Robin, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth, and now I want them to get knocked out of the Champions League because of a penalty where a player's dived, so they know what it feels like. I don't want a player like Robin to taste success. But what can I do? Proud of the lads.
Jasper.
Yeah, I mean, he's right. Robin is a massive diving twat, and he has sort of cast a shadow over both ties, really. But the reality is that when you get to that Champions League level, the refereeing has always been poor. It was poor when Chelsea played Barcelona. It was poor when we played Barcelona. I mean, there's just so many examples of dreadful refereeing decisions, red cards, penalties throughout the whole, last 5 years. So ultimately, you have to score enough goals to beat your opponent, and then another one just to counteract the penalty that you're undoubtedly going to get awarded against you by some shit referee, and we're just not at that stage where we can get a comfortable margin against world-class teams like Bayern or Barcelona, or Madrid. So, Bayern is showing us where we want to be in a few years' time. That's what we're aiming at, but it's a shame that it was about diving and not about football. But having said all that, I did say in the last podcast that we're better off actually not being in the Champions League, so we can focus on the domestic trophies. So I'm glad we're out. I just gutted that it's at the expense of Özil. We shouldn't have played him in a game that we were never going to win.
Okay. I don't know. I thought we put up a good fight yesterday, and over the two legs. I do wish Arteta was available for the first leg and had been the penalty taker instead of Özil. I think that would have set a different tone for the game and for the tie.
Definitely,
yeah. But I'm not placing blame on Özil. I'm not placing blame. I just wish that Arteta hadn't picked up a yellow in the previous round.
I think when the game against Everton shows just how flipping good Arteta is as a penalty taker, it's always hard to do that. Yeah, it's always hard to take a penalty, score it, and then have to take it again. And
that was awesome.
There's a lot of psychology involved, and he made it. He's effortless, isn't he? He's brilliant. But that I do actually think when we look at it, people will be like, yeah, look at the statistics. But I went to both games, and it really was more evenly matched than people think. A lot of teams have possession where they don't do that much with it. We used to be very guilty of that, and we've toned it down this year. But there would have been other times where we've played teams and had all the possession and haven't put it away, and people say, oh, Arsenal, they're one-dimensional, they haven't got a finishing touch. But when it's Bayern Munich or Barcelona, then we'll say, oh yeah, they dominated you. So, sometimes I feel like we can't win, but I actually think it was very evenly matched. If we scored that penalty, if the referee had made the right calls, could have been anything on another day.
Well, even in the second leg, last night, I mean, we did create chances and we needed to score 3 goals. We created enough to score 3 goals, but we weren't clinical enough. And there was a couple of times where we had suddenly a fast counter-attack and we weren't clinical enough with that final ball. There's one point Rosicky could have put someone through, and there was a couple more like that where, had we taken those, we could have turned it round. So there was just a little bit of, rushing our chances, but we created enough to actually win the game. So you can't say that they completely dominated us. The possession maybe, but if you look at shots taken, there wasn't a massive difference between the two.
Exactly.
Yeah, I hear that. And the thing is, the shame is, I mean, you really have to put up stick your hand, doff your cap to the boys, because they were being made to chase the ball quite a lot, and to be able to have enough energy to go up and sort of support Giroud all the time. It must have been a really daunting, hard, arduous task. So many times the ball went up to Giroud, and some people might say, oh, he was isolated, we didn't have enough. You try running around, do 13, 14 kilometres chasing that ball, and then have to try and get up with Oxlade-Chamberlain injury. It's not easy.
It's not easy at all. And also, we had very. I mean, it was always going to happen. It's our own fault, really. Maybe it's self-inflicted, but our squad is quite small. And if you look at the injuries we've had, and the bench in that second leg tells its own story. If you look at their bench compared to our bench, I think that shows the difference there. And
they had the 2 goal scorers on the bench, didn't they?
Exactly. And we had Isaac Hayden on the bench. I mean, against Bayern Munich away, Isaac Hayden.
What was the cock-up with the administration? We actually couldn't play because he was ineligible, wasn't he?
Yeah, we only had 6 players on the bench.
Yeah, I mean...
It's just ridiculous, really. But, it's unbelievable where you think that really on the bench all we had was Flamini, Gnabry, and...
Hayden Mullins or...
No, there was one other person that realistically you'd bring on.
Vivian.
Vivian.
I've been away for too long, it's just... I don't know. But, it's just one of them ones where Ramsey being injured, Walcott being injured, they were massive misses for us. Gibbs being injured as well, Chesney being suspended. Even the boys that came in though, they did very, very well. But I think a lot of things worked against us. But as you said, Jasper, in terms of us being out of this, it definitely does do us a favour. I wouldn't have wanted to be out. I'm not glad we're out, but you can imagine that situation arising where we've got Wigan in the FA Cup semi-final, then we've got a team like Barcelona in the quarters of the Champions League. And then we try and manage both, and we ruin both. And all of a sudden,
and still try and fight for the Premier League.
I never, to be clear, I never actively want us to lose a game. But on this occasion, I guarantee you, if we tried to go for 3 trophies, we'd have won none. I just think because it's been 9 years, never mind if it's 2 or 3 or 4, because it's been 9 years, now we have to just be honest with ourselves and say, look, we got a very best chance in 9 years of winning a pot, and that's the FA Cup. Let's just focus on that. Let's just make sure we win that so that we got something to show at the end of the season, because if it becomes 10 years, it doesn't matter how far we got in the Champions League or how close we came to winning the league or how close we came to winning the FA Cup. Nothing is nothing. If you win fuck all, you win fuck all, and you don't get any prizes for coming second place. Let's just win something, and then next season we'll try the Champions League or whatever. At least you got 1 trophy under your belt, for all these years of effort. Do you know what I mean? I just think that's why I wanted us to go out of the Champions League, because it was Bayern, we were never going to win it. Let's just, save our team and save our injuries and try to keep everybody fit so that we can make sure that we win the FA Cup and we have a bloody good crack at the league as well.
Yeah, I'm just glad that Wenger didn't put out a scratch team. Some people saying put out under 21. I'm happy that he put out the team that he did. They went for it as much as they could. You can't ask for any more. Look ahead to Sunday.
No, they made a lot of effort, didn't they? I mean, they put in a great effort. They ran their socks off. You know, I saw Oxlade-Chamberlain at one point. You could see his hamstring go ping, and he still carried on playing. You know, so you can't criticise them for effort, but you know, we're just not at that level yet.
No, but we will get there. I mean, I didn't read any of the papers. I actively avoided all the papers, but going on social media, all I'm hearing is Neil Ashton from Daily Mail or whoever he writes for. Singling out Mesut Özil, saying it's basically a waste of 42 million and he's nicking a living. And this is, I don't know if this was before it was found out that he had a hamstring, that's why he had to be taken off, or after. I'm not sure. But you know, apparently there were 700 responses on his newspaper's website to the article, mostly from angry Gooners. Ian Wright's come out to defend Mesut Özil as well. Gary Neville, I've seen on his Twitter handle, has come out and defended Mesut Özil. You know the problems that you face coming into such a league in the first season for anybody. It's a daunting task. I just wanted to get your opinions on that, and I'm going to start with you, Jasper.
Well, it's the same old shit, isn't it? I mean, you said it yourself, 700 responses. It's the whole reason he's done it, is so that he can say to an advertising company, look, I can write an article and get 700 hits on one page. How much are you going to pay me for that? You know, you look at all these lovely clicks you'll get through to your, you know, kinky website, whatever it is, you know. It's just about generating clicks these days. Or he sat there and thought, how can I wind up 700 Gooners? And he'll write some shit. You know, we keep saying the same old thing all the time, you know, month after month, that it took Bergkamp however many seasons to get going, it took Henry however many seasons to get going, and all of a sudden, in this day and age with instant reaction to everything, instant Twitter, instant Sky Sports News, you know, if an expensive player has an off game, he was a waste of money. But they forget about all these world-class players that went on to be some of the greatest players ever to grace the Premier League, and how long it took them to get going. Of course there's going to be an adaptation period. You know, I criticised Özil in podcast a few months ago because I thought he was, you know, a bit anonymous in some games. But even though I criticised him, I still accept that next season he will be better because of the reasons you said. You know, the winter break, his body's not used to playing constantly, you know, and he's got to get used to the pace and physicality of the Premier League. This is all common sense, but, you know, why ever let common sense get in the way of a good story? You know, it's just, he writes bollocks to wind people up and they get wound up, you know.
Mo?
Yeah, you know, he's absolutely nailed it there, basically. It's just basically, I don't know, maybe you can call it Adrian Durham-itis or something, you know. It's, you're talking crap to get a reaction, and unfortunately, too many people fall for it. You know, like with me, honestly, when I listen to Adrian Durham, I laugh most of the time. For me, it's a comedy show. I just end up sitting, you know, laughing at him. And with this, when I heard all of these responses to this and people coming out and defending it, instead of me getting curious as to, oh, what's he written, I've seen it 100 times before. I didn't even bother reading it. I just thought, well, what's the point? You know what it's going to be. I've got my opinion of Özil. Someone's got their opinion of Özil. Now, number one, I doubt the sincerity of that opinion. I think there's an ulterior motive to it. But number two, just because he gets to write a column somewhere doesn't mean it's any more valid than mine or the next person down the pub or wherever. You know, it's just an opinion. I'm not going to waste my time reading something that clearly, by the reactions that it got, is a bit excessive or over the top. I'll stick with mine, thank you. And I'd rather I'd rather spend my time talking to people that I think have got reasoned, sensible opinions, rather than wasting it reading opinions of people whose name I didn't know before today, and we're only talking about him now because he's written a load of crap. It's a shame that we're even giving him the time.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Indeed.
I mean, if you think about it, any club, not to say our club, the people that have the most balanced view of any player in their squad are the people that watch him play, especially in the stadium and not on television. The people that watch him play on the pitch week after week after week, season after season. They know what a player's peak is, they know what his trough is, what his worst game was, and everything about him. You know, and people have watched Özil ever since he came to us. People have watched him before he came to us. They know everything about him. So why should we listen to some tabloid hack who probably supports fucking Spurs or Liverpool anyway, and hasn't been watching the player? He watches one game and goes, oh, what a fucking waste of money. What the fuck does he know? Yeah.
Yeah, indeed. I think we should leave that there, shouldn't we, guys?
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Cool. All right, so that ends the review of the Champions League game. Let's move on to the North London derby.
Phil, I'm an Arsenal fan as a kid. My dad still goes to the Emirates every week. I'd love to see him do well.
We've got a special guest coming on called Chris Miller from The Fighting Cock, and I'll bring him in now.
The Fighting Cock. Something appropriate about that.
Hello, how you doing?
Hello, Chris. How you doing, mate? You all right?
Yeah, good. Can you hear me okay?
Very loud and clear. All right, so we've got Chris here from the Fighting... Is it the Fighting Cock podcast?
That's right, yep.
That's right, okay. We've got Jasper.
Evening.
All right, and Moh as well.
How's it going, Chris? You all right?
Yeah, good, thanks. How you doing?
Not too bad, cheers.
All right, well, thanks for coming on, Chris. I want to start... Well, we've got the big game on Sunday, ain't we, over at your place. I just want to ask you, first of all, what's the feeling amongst the Tottenham faithful about Sunday's game?
I think it's a feeling, basically, of pessimism from most Spurs fans at the moment after the Chelsea match of the weekend, where we just basically capitulated, as we have a few times this season. And seeing the manager sort of almost in tears in the game hasn't helped a lot of people, I don't think. So we're sort of going into this one tails between my legs a little bit, just hoping we can get a result tomorrow night against Benfica to pick us up a little bit in time for the big game. Okay.
I picked up. I actually went on your timeline and I saw there were apparently supposed to be some big, hullabaloo about Tim Sherwood's recent press conference. Well, I didn't pick up anything sensationalist. I thought he was being quite honest. Quite real. I don't know what you thought about it, Chris.
I agree with you. I mean, I didn't have too much of a problem with what he was saying, and I think it needed to be said to some extent. We've had quite a few players this season who have underperformed. I mean, Jan Vertonghen is one who's not only underperformed, but he's sulked his way through the season. He's been forced to play left back quite a bit, which he obviously doesn't like to do, and he's made it very clear in the press, but also through his body language on the pitch and the kind of way he gets at his teammates. And I think he was one of the ones that Sherwood was talking about when he was saying about players not having enough heart and guts. And I think Paulinho as well, he's struggled to settle. And I think, given that the World Cup is happening in his home country, I think he's trying to look after himself a bit and keep himself fit. And you see him visibly bottling 50-50 challenges, and it's not what the fans like to see. And if he does that on Sunday, I imagine there'll be boos.
Right. Okay. Going on, some of your players and their attitude to the season unfolding. Comparing someone like Jan Vertonghen and our own very own Thomas Vermaelen, where Thomas Vermaelen's not getting any games, and when he does get a game, he has to play left back, and then gets put out of the side once the starting duo come back.
Yeah.
Jan Vertonghen is a regular starter for your guys. I think he's a part of the defensive partner of Belgium, isn't he? With Vincent Kompany, am I right?
Vertonghen generally plays at left back for Belgium.
Right. Okay.
And funnily enough, he doesn't mind playing left back for Belgium. It's just playing left back for Tottenham he seems to have a problem with.
Right. Going back to the Paulinho, at the start of the season, he was on fire, wasn't he? I mean, there was, he was one of your more impressive players, I would say.
Yeah, he had a couple of good games at the start of the season. I mean, he was one of the best players against Palace on the opening day, and I thought the signs were good from him. He's a typical kind of box-to-box player with lots of energy. He does the kind of arriving late in the box very well. The problem he's got is that he's a really poor finisher. So making those late runs and having run 40 yards to arrive perfectly in the box is all well and good, but if you can't do anything with the ball once you've got it, it's almost a waste. And it might be that he's just, he's played. I think he's played something like 50 games in the last calendar year, which is probably not helping his cause. But and of course he's moved to a completely different culture, which is going to take him some time to settle. But he's really struggled over the last couple of months. Aside from one brilliant game against Stoke, where he was nobbled by Charlie Adam. Aside from that, he's really struggled.
Who isn't?
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
Who hasn't seen nobbled Charlie Adam?
Yeah,
Fucking
exactly.
everyone.
I want to ask you, let's go back to the first meeting at the beginning of the season. There was a lot of hype around coming into that game, wasn't there? I mean, you guys had spent quite a lot of money.
Yeah.
We hadn't spent anything at that point. Were Tottenham very confident going into that game?
I think.
Did you think this was your year to sort of like, did you think that, with your summer transfer dealings and whatnot, and our summer transfer dealings at that point, did you think that this was the year that, you could overtake us?
I would say, actually, to be honest, most Spurs fans don't feel confident about any North London derby. The Spurs' nature, in a way, is to sort of feel pessimistic about these kind of big games, because we know that we so often underperform against the bigger teams. But to an extent, there was a slight bit of optimism in that we've got some unknown quantities that might catch Arsenal by surprise, and I think we bought lots of physically dominating players down the spine of the team, and we were playing Capu and Paulinho in that game in the middle of midfield, and we thought maybe it would ruffle a few feathers. But as so often turns out in the North London derbies of recent years, it almost backfired, because Arsenal's quick passing just played around our big midfielders. And Rosicky always seems to play well against us. He had a good game, and Cazorla had a really good game that day. It was a tight match, actually, that game, and it could have gone either way. And it just came down to that excellent Giroud finish in the end. It was a bit of a sickener, because we did okay, considering it was a relatively new team.
And then going into the FA Cup game, I think it was a pretty comprehensive performance, if I remember correctly. I just want to ask you about the coin throwing incidents with Theo Walcott. What was the reaction from the majority of the Spurs fan base? Because we were, we couldn't believe what was happening. The boy was injured, and coins are raining down on that side of the pitch, and he's put up. It's not even an offensive gesture. He just put up a 2-0 sign, and then apparently he went hysteric. He went just. Was you there at the game, Chris?
I wasn't, unfortunately. No, I couldn't make that day, but
right. So can I ask you?
I wouldn't have thrown a coin if I was there.
Can I ask you, what was the reaction after all the... calm down. What was the reaction from the main Tottenham? Were people happy? Were they like, yeah, we should have thrown more coins? Or were there people saying, no, that was out of order, that was bang out of order, that shouldn't have happened? What was your reaction to that?
Say it's probably typical of most teams' fan bases. There's half of the fans are sort of saying, he deserved it. He's giving it out on the touchline. Professional footballers should be more careful what they do with their gestures and whatnot. The other half saying, he's just having a bit of banter. No one deserves to have a metal object thrown at their head from close range. My opinion is that whatever a player does, there's no need to throw anything onto the pitch at them. It's just stupid, really. Have banter by all means, and it's just a silly gesture from Walcott. He was just having a laugh at the Spurs fans' expense, and we should have just given him plenty of banter back. I'm sure we did, but the coins are a bit unnecessary.
Cool. All right, I'm going to throw out the questions open. Now I'm going to bring in Mo. Mo, you got a question for Chris?
Yeah, well, I'll just comment on the Walcott telling me the score thing. I'm sure you remember, Chris, Bale doing the same thing to us.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, and I found that kind of amusing. Football fans have got such short memories, and if it was the other way around, if Walcott had done it first and Bale had done it second, we would have been doing exactly the same thing, going on about, that's uncalled for, he shouldn't be doing that. I wouldn't have been throwing coins, I can assure you that, but I would have been slating Bale for doing it. But, really, the fact that both of us have done it, none of us have got anything to... Really, we've got no leg to stand on if we want to criticise Bale or Walcott, depending on which side you support. They've both done it. Let's face it, it is just banter. And people that throw the coins, I'd hope you say half, but I hope it's a minority of people that think that's the way to go about things. It was disgusting, but, what can you do? Football's a passionate game, and unfortunately there's idiots that go. You can't make football idiot-proof.
Absolutely.
And what I wanted to ask you, I put a tweet out, and I tagged you in it, so you might have seen it, and I said, have you got, to fellow Gooners, have you got any serious questions for Chris? And some of them that I've had, one really interesting one actually. Andrew Summers, and his Twitter name is @AndySummers1, has said, ask about the AIA sponsorship. Some of their fans have been complaining about the logo colour. Now, it's red, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
And so has that been a bone of contention for some of your fans?
Very much so. I mean, we've had red logos before, so it's nothing new. That's the first point I'd make. And we were sponsored by Mansion a few years ago, the casino, and they had a red logo, and the fans didn't like it then. I can see it from both sides. Yeah, exactly. It's not nice to have that reminder on your shirt. I mean, we're very proud of our lily and white shirt, and I think our kit generally is we tend to have nice kits, and the red on it just cheapens it somewhat. I can see it from both sides. I mean, it's 100 million quid for our sponsorship deal, and we don't have the stadium that the likes of Arsenal, City, United have, so we have to take the money we can. I mean, financially we can't compete with the big teams in most respects, so I can understand why Daniel Levy would opt for this deal and ignore the fact that the sponsor's logo is red. But from a fan perspective, you sort of see what's happened at Cardiff City, where they've had to change the whole not just a logo, but they've had to change the whole colour of their shirt for financial and sponsorship gain. And you just think maybe this is the first step of many potentially, where the club can impose something like this, which is completely against what the majority of the fan base would want. We don't get a say in it, but we kind of feel like we have to accept it to kind of keep in touch with the larger teams financially. And you worry that
a bit of an overreaction, Chris. You know, it's a sponsor. You know, I mean, having a bit of red in your kit doesn't mean it doesn't mean anything, does it? It's just a colour and a sponsor. Is that argument not valid, or?
No, I think it's a fair point. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say in a very inarticulate way is that it could be that this paves the way for bigger changes, and the argument would be, if you nip it in the bud now and tell the club how unhappy you are, it might make them realise that it's something the fans don't appreciate.
Okay, fair enough. All right, I've got another one. This question's quite funny, but I don't think it's meant in a rude way. It's from @EliReserversi. Why Spurz?
Spurz.
Why do you support the Spurz?
Oh, this name Spurz is so childish. I don't understand why Arsenal use that name for it. It's odd. Why do I support them? My dad is a massive Spurs fan. I wouldn't have had a lot of choice in the matter. And I think it set me up nicely. You know, I've learned how to deal with failure and misery in the 90s. Sort of grew up during one of our least successful periods, where some of the football was absolute dross, but it's character building. It's you learn to appreciate the good times when you have so many bad times, and I think our fan base, there's a sort of bittersweet element to it, and we have relatively low expectations, and it makes you realise that you don't go to football just to enjoy success. You go to the football to be with your mates and be a part of a bigger movement, and be a part of something where everyone's putting together. And I love that element of going to White Hart Lane.
All right, fair enough. So you can blame your dad for that one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, and look, I'll let you structure this question however you want, but what I wanted to do really was to kind of run down the signings you made in summer.
Yeah.
And kind of like, you know, I'm sure that you think this is a loaded question, but everyone's got their different opinions. There's some Arsenal fans that would say they wouldn't sign Özil again. So, you know, I'm just saying everyone's got their opinion. I was just hoping for your opinion on all of your summer signings, and knowing what you know now, would you sign them again if you could turn back time? So you can do the list.
That's a very interesting question, actually. I mean, there's been lots of discussion about our signings, as you can imagine. And I remember just when the season was starting, I wrote an article and I was praising Franco Baldini for his fantastic work in the transfer market. I was absolutely thrilled with our signings. I thought, for once, you know, we've gone out, we've identified players who are exactly what we need. We've gone and got them with very limited messing about. Not too much of a kind of haggling in the press for weeks. We've just gone and got the deals done, and I was thrilled.
They played.
Yeah, and then we saw them play, and obviously a season in, when you're signing lots of players from abroad, is probably still too early to judge. But I'd say from the majority of them, I'd have wanted to see a lot more, even in their first season. So I guess let's start off from move up the field from a defence. Vlad Kirikesh has been one of the best of the signings. He's adapted really well to Premier League football. He's had some excellent performances. He's excellent on the ball. His big weakness is that he's not great in the air. And I think that he might struggle in that respect if he doesn't improve. He does seem to be a leader, though.
You signed way too many of them to talk about them in this much detail.
Right.
I was hoping for like kind of yes or no's, re-sign or not sort of thing. As much as we love to hear about your wonderful signings, there were way too many of them.
Okay, I'll spare you the details on our Romanian centre back. Okay, so Kirikesh, yes, I'd sign him again. Capu, no. Paulinho, no. Eriksson, yes. Lamela, I'm still hopeful on Lamela, but for the money we spent on him, no. And Soldado, I mean, the signs are so good at times, but then I think when it goes right for Soldado, he'll be fine. But I can't really see how he fits into a sort of modern day 4-3-3 or 4-5-1, so that's the worry. So I'll go no with Soldado. Chadley's an absolute no. I don't get Chadley as a player at all.
Right. And did you sign Holtby this year?
No, he came in the previous January.
He's gone to Fulham, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean Holtby's a big fan favourite because he's a really passionate lad. He seems like such a nice guy, and I think we need a bit of his passion. But his performances have been a little bit wayward. He's quite inconsistent.
All right. So the yeses then were Capoue and Eriksson.
No.
Eriksson and Kirikesh.
Kirikesh, sorry. Kirikesh and Eriksson. Yeah. Fair enough, okay. I'm not going to say anything. I don't want to be like, I don't want to be typical. We've invited you on, we'll be nice. So, but, obviously that's not great, is it, in terms of a success ratio when it comes to the transfers?
It's not, and there are lots of rumours that Franco Baldini will be sacked come the summer, and we've as you'll know, because we've snapped him away from Arsenal's clutches. Ian Broomfield's just been re-signed as a scout at Spurs. I think he was all set to sign for Arsenal, and then we sort of nipped in and offered him more money, so he's coming to Spurs. And he had a very good success rate. He was the one who found Sandro, for one, who's probably our best player, and was also instrumental in, I think, the Lloris and Vertonghen deals as well.
Isn't it a bit harsh to sack Baldini, though, because, he did find those players, but I don't really think it's his fault that they haven't gelled on the pitch. I mean, they come in under a manager who isn't the greatest, doesn't have a great pedigree, and is very young and is still working out how to manage a Premier League club. And then all of a sudden they're under a manager who has never managed a Premier League club. So it's not the best judge of the players. I think if you've got a top quality manager in there, all of a sudden he'd make them click within a few months, and then it'd be nothing to do with Baldini. So it's very harsh to go that route and sack him.
Yeah, I can definitely see that argument. All I'd say is that if we'd spent half the amount on them, that would apply. But we've spent top dollar on these players, and he's the one that's negotiated the deals. And when you're spending the likes of 30 million on Lamela and 25 million on Soldado, I'm not sure of the exact fees, but that's a heck of a lot of money to get wrong. And I think he has to take a lot of the responsibility for that.
I thought Levy was the negotiator, though. Wasn't he the one that negotiated the Bale deal?
Yeah, I mean, Levy's a renowned negotiator, but Baldini was brought in to try and broker a lot of the deals and take the responsibility off Levy, I gather.
Mm.
So, about that, I mean, there was this, when Bell went, we got Özil, and apparently you guys wanted, there was an e-petition or something about curtailing the agreement, some sort of agreement between Tottenham and Real Madrid. What was that? Was any truth in that, or was it just some sort of spurious, wicked internet rumour?
No, there was a genuine. Someone set up one of these e-petitions, as they're very easy to do. I wouldn't give it much credence, but to be honest, we don't seem to get an awful lot from that Real Madrid deal. It does feel like basically there to give them first option on our best players, first Modric and then Bale. We've
So
got
what were
very
you
little
supposed to?
return.
Okay, so you were supposed to get a return out. Were you supposed to get first refusal on their squad players or
Yeah, I
reserves?
think the idea was, the classic football lines that are trotted out, like sharing best practice and training and that kind of thing. I mean, I don't know how much that really happens in the football world, whether the teams have time to do that kind of thing. But we'd have hoped that we would have had a couple of their young players on loan, I guess.
So is it a case of you did sell Elvis Presley and you brought in, you got, I don't know.
I got Snow Patrol.
Yeah.
From what I understand, that deal actually did get terminated. That working relationship did actually get terminated afterwards. Lily wasn't happy, I don't think.
I'd like to think it did. I don't think it ever came out whether it did or didn't.
The thing is, though, again, sorry, I was going to say that's a bit of a knee jerk, isn't it? Because if you think you've terminated it because we got Özil, but Özil wouldn't have gone to Spurs anyway. So, did they really think, oh, we're about to sell Özil, we'd better call Spurs in case they want him? Özil wouldn't have gone to a non-Champions League club anyway, so you terminated the deal for a stupid reason.
I think it was more the fact that they just basically had first option on our best players for 2 close seasons in a row and basically ripped the spine out of our team 2 years in a row.
But it's nothing to do with Özil then?
Not as far as I'm aware. I mean, that was just an irritating side show to the whole story.
I think that was the final straw. It was just a case of, after buying Bale, then they've go and funded that deal by giving Arsenal such a good player, and when you've got a working relationship with the team, I guess you don't expect them to help strengthen your rivals. I think that was just the final straw. Just a bit of emotion coming through. One more question for you, Chris. James Farley 2 has asked, so he's used the word flops, that's his words, not mine, but out of all of your flops, who's the worst?
The worst for me is Chadley. Just he really divides opinion. He's a very functional footballer who was talked up in the press in Holland, certainly being this wonderfully technically gifted player who will go on to great things in England, but we've just seen, in my opinion, very little sign of him being particularly good technically. He just seems like a good athlete, a big unit who can stand out on the left, trap a ball and bring others into play, but he's very limited. So I'd say he's the biggest flop for me.
All right.
Okay. All right. I want to go back to Tim Sherwood and his comments straight after the Chelsea lost. Now we saw a clip on, I think it was on Vine or whatever. I don't know what the interviewer asked him, but his response was, "Players Club top 4, wake up."
Yeah.
And then later on in the post-press conference, he was again. It seemed like he was blaming. He was saying, "Look, I haven't got time to mollycoddle or mother them or babysit them. They've got to stand up and take responsibility." Now, didn't AVB sort of point a finger at some players before and was quickly sort of shown the door? It seems. Do you think that Sherwood is going to be given the time? Do you think what he's doing is currying favour with the hierarchy, or do you think that come the end of the season you don't get top 4, he's out?
I think that will be a very harsh judgment to pass on him, getting rid of him because we haven't got the top 4. But having said that, I can't see him being kept on if someone along the lines of Van Gaal is available, and that's the rumour that we've already tied up a deal for Van Gaal to take over after the World Cup, and I think most Spurs fans would be thrilled with that. I mean, Sherwood is a divisive character because he grew up as an Arsenal fan, as you must know. So he was already onto a loser there with a lot of fans who would just not accept him full stop. He's had a difficult time. He came in to take over a team that was looking very disjointed and low in confidence and not scoring goals. And he's got scoring, and a lot of that's down to Adebayor and his management of Adebayor. And full credit to Sherwood for managing a player who lots of managers have failed to get the best out of. But the wheels have come off a little bit in recent times. We've had a lot of games in quick succession, and he's not necessarily rotated this squad as best he could. The football's not been particularly fluent. I'm quite relaxed about giving him a bit more time and maybe even giving him next season, just seeing how it goes. But I know plenty of fans would be happy to see the back of him.
Just going on about the Arsenal connection, did you guys know that he was an Arsenal fan from when he used to play for you, or did it come out? Was it just known when that that TV clip came out last year?
No, I think we all knew that he was an Arsenal fan. It was certainly, there were lots. I mean, his dad's an Arsenal season ticket holder. I think that was quite well known when he was playing for us. I mean, there was the classic rumour of him having an Arsenal tattoo, and that's why he wore long sleeve shirts and that kind of thing. I think that's just a typical rumour that goes round about players who wear long sleeves.
Okay, all right, okay. One more question from questions. People are asking, do you hate Arsenal more than you love Tottenham? Or do Spurs fans hate Arsenal more than they love Tottenham? Because there seems that there's a lot of attention, a lot of time spent, ridiculing and cajoling or trying to get under the skin of Arsenal fans and so forth. And I just wanted to know what your thoughts are on that.
I think we hate Arsenal and love Tottenham in equal measure. I think the two are inseparable, really. You can't love Tottenham without hating Arsenal. And I think, in a way, Arsenal have sort of almost forgotten about Spurs to an extent, because we had so many years where we finished a long way below you, and now we're sort of getting closer. It's like we're coming back into Arsenal's psyche, and so we're winding up the pressure as fans even more, just to pick some fun and have a laugh at the Arsenal fans' expense. Okay, cool.
Do you think that looking back now, would you rather have Harry Redknapp and Rosie back at the club, or do you think you've moved on from that period now? Because you don't seem to have done any better since he's gone, have you?
No, certainly not on the pitch. I mean, my issues with Redknapp were all off the pitch issues. I mean, I thought the way he flirted with the FA over the England manager's job was incredibly disrespectful, and he was putting a lot of pressure on Daniel Levy at a time when Levy's wife was very ill, and he was undergoing a lot of stress, and I thought it was really inappropriate. I just did not like the way that Redknapp was behaving in general, and he was a bit of a kind of Teflon character. Nothing was ever his fault, and there was always an excuse. And I'd gone off him basically as a spokesman for the club. I found him repellent by the end, but I can't argue with the football that he produced a lot of the time. I mean, there were downsides. We sort of tailed off towards the end of the season under Redknapp, but he brought a lot of fantastic football to White Hart Lane, especially some of the Champions League nights. Fantastic.
Okay, Jasper?
I just wanted to ask, that Chelsea game, is that the worst defensive performance you've ever seen?
Oh no, not even this season. I mean, the Liverpool game this season was horrific defensively. The Chelsea game, do you know what? I thought we contained them for the first 50 minutes, and then Vertonghen had a brain fart and seemed to just lose the plot for a minute. That's 1-0. The referee makes a joke of a decision with the Kabul sending off and penalty, and that was 2-0, and that was game over really. And then we had Kyle Walker with his crazy back header. I don't know what he was thinking there, and then obviously Sandro slipped in the area. So it was just one of those games. I mean, it was a classic Spurs performance.
Vintage. I just can't think of a game where there have been so many horrific individual errors all in one game. You know, you sometimes have someone like Koscielny putting the ball in his own net, and it's just, and then, we somehow managed to draw the game or even win it. But then, having Sandro fall over in the box, and then the back header and the back pass to Eto'o, I mean, it was
like
in one
Keystone
game.
Cox, wasn't it? It was
hilarious.
Yeah, it's kind of, you have to laugh or you cry, sort of defending.
All right. I want to go on to the weekend's game. I want to revisit that. Which Arsenal players were you most concerned about?
Normally I'd say Walcott, because he always seems to play well against us, but obviously he's unavailable. Probably the little kind of tricky players you've got that make those clever runs in off the flanks and get in between the lines of defensive midfield. So Santi Cazorla and Rosicky are the two that spring to mind immediately because they do that so well. So I would probably say those two, and Oxlade-Chamberlain seems to be in really good form at the moment as well.
Okay. And who would you say your key players are, apart from Adebayor?
Well, Adebayor is the key player. I mean, since Sherwood's come in, I think he's scored or assisted more than 50% of our goals, which tells you a thing or two about how important he's been. Other than Addy, I'd say Eriksson, if he's fit and available, he's stepped it up over the last couple of months, and he's started to look like a important kind of creative spark in our team. And I think if Kabul's fit, he'll be a key player for us. He's such an underrated defender, one of the best defenders in the Premier League, in my opinion. It's just his injury issues are horrific, and I think there's a chance that he might be released at the end of the season because of it.
Right. For me, I never, even though we're I think we're 6 points ahead of you, and we're certainly not in that downward spiral that AVB thought we were going to continue down last season. I still don't go into this game with 100% confidence.
Interesting.
Because it's a North London derby.
And it's a White Hart Lane.
And it's at your house. And literally anything can happen, you know. From going up, 4-2 and then drawing 4-4. Was it our house or their house? I think it was our house, wasn't it? At 4-4, or going over there and seeing Gareth Bell score 2 goals and give us a nice little reminder of the scoreline. Anything can happen. So I don't like predicting it, to be honest with you. But I'm going to ask you for your prediction for Sunday's game.
Okay. Well,
first goal scorer and the scoreline, Chris. Give us what your head thinks and what your heart thinks, if it's easier.
My head says we'll probably narrowly lose. And have a bit of a reaction to last week's game, but narrowly lose 2-1. My heart thinks we can do it. Arsenal, I don't think you've won. You've not done so well away from home in your last few games. I don't think you've won in 4, is it now? So that's something to bear in mind. I played 7-a-side football tonight myself, and I scored 1 in the right end and scored 2 own goals, which I saw as a bad omen. So I'm thinking, head 2-1 Arsenal, heart 2-1 Tottenham, and first goal scorer, let's say Adebayor.
Okay, Mo, what do you reckon?
God, I just don't know. It's so hard to predict in those European away games because you don't know how the team's going to react. Are you at home or away to Benfica on Thursday?
Home.
I think it's going to be a 1-1 draw.
What?
Yeah,
Wash your mouth out, man.
Listen, for me, right, when it comes to these North London derbies, you can forget form, you can forget everything else. It's just a case of who wants it more on the day. And, Arsenal are blessed to have a team that was extremely talented and also really understood how important North London derbies were. Vieira, Henry, Bergkamp, Perez, Ljungberg, Lauren, they loved it. They, for some reason, they just understood. But I just, I think now it will just be a case of who wants it more on the day. And the only thing that makes me think we might do it is that the games we have played against you this season, I do think our players have worked out of their skin on them occasions. Giroud in the first one was absolutely brilliant. He really, really busted a gut out there. And I want the game against Benfica to be a really high tempo, tiring game. And then I think we might have the edge over you in the second half or the last half an hour. But form, what's happening around the club, all of that sort of stuff, you can chuck that out the window. It's a North London derby. Whoever puts in more effort on the day will probably take the spoils. But I think it will just be a draw, to be honest with you.
I'm surprised at you. I'm very surprised at you, man. Very, very, very surprised at you.
He needs to get some sleep, man. Seriously.
Jasper.
I think there's no doubt at all. We're going to spank them, absolutely. Because, we've had a 5-day gap. They've had a 3-day gap. They're on a terrible run of form. We're on a pretty decent run of form. The Ox is on fire. Cazorla's on great form. Giroud's coming back to form. I can't see anything other than 3 points here. I just think that, they're in all kinds of trouble. They've got suspended players, they've got injured players. I mean, yeah, we've got injury as well, but the depth of our squad is good. We lose Jack Wilshere, we bring on Rosicky, we've got the Ox, it doesn't worry me at all. Okay, left back, we might have to play Vermaelen, but, what's he going to come up against? Lennon? I mean, I really can't see any problem. There's still a team that are trying to gel, and while they're doing that, half the players are out. The only threat is Adebayor, but our players have played with him for so long when he was at Arsenal. They know how to deal with him, and he didn't cause us any problems in the FA Cup game, and he didn't cause us any problems in the Premier League game as well. Or maybe did he not play in that one? I don't remember now. Anyway, he hasn't caused us any problems this season, so and he's their biggest threat, so I'm not concerned. I'm definitely not concerned about that. I can't see anything other than a win.
I hope you're right, man.
I've
got a question for you, Chris. Do you think it's a bigger game for you or a bigger game for us?
I'd say if it happened 2 weeks ago, it would have been a big game for us, but as it is now, it's a bigger game for you guys.
So is that understand? Do you think that? I mean, okay. So leading on from that question, what's your aspirations? Do you think you're going to get Europa League, or do you think Champions League is still?
Champions League's gone now. So I mean, I would love us to just go all out for the Europa League and win it, and try. I mean, Benfica are a fantastic team who have, I think they've won 23 of their last 25 games or something. So we're not overly hopeful about that over 2 legs, but we'd love to win a trophy, as I'm sure you guys have been without a trophy for long enough to realise how important it is to win stuff once in a while. So we would love to win a trophy.
Interest. Yep. Okay. Great stuff. All right. Okay then, Chris. I'm gonna wrap it up now, but I just want to thank you for coming on. I asked, was it Felonius? Is it Felonius?
Felonius Filth, yeah.
Yeah, he come on. He's like, no, I'm not having it. I wanted to get Flav, and I tell Flav I want him to come on next season because he was he the host of that.
That's right.
Podcast?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's the one I want to come on next season. So send him a message that next year he's on our podcast, definitely.
No worries.
But I want to thank you for coming in because not many Tottenham fans would have come on, and I think you acquitted yourself pretty well.
Cheers, mate. Pleasure.
Are you going to let him go then? You're going to let him go, Giles? Because if you let him go, we can't sing our little song, Priscilla, we will not let you go. Let me go.
Chris, it's been great having you on. I want to thank you for coming on, and I wish you luck for the rest of the season. And carry on your great work at the podcast. I mean, I listened to it the other day. It's quite a funny,
yeah, I think it's the kind of podcast that will appeal to, hopefully, not just Spurs fans. So it's, yeah, maybe not Arsenal fans so much, but there's something in there for everyone, I'd like to think.
Cool. Great stuff. All right, then. All the best, Chris.
Cheers, gents.
Cheers, Chris.
Cheers, lads.
Cheers, Chris.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, that was Chris Miller at Windy COIS from the Fighting Cock podcast. So, guys, just to wrap up, we've overrun by some margin, so 3 points on Sunday.
Definitely.
For you, Jasper, and you still reckon a point, Mo? I'm very surprised at you, Mo, because you're usually you usually give it, and you're.
Listen, I do like to be hospitable. We've invited him on to a podcast, and as you say, not a lot of Tottenham fans just went, forget it, I'm not going to bother. Yeah, so I want to be polite to him, but I just think, North London derbies, you just never know. Look at some of the scorelines in recent years. Who could have predicted them? 5-4,
I'm not knocking you for your. I'm not knocking you.
5-2, 5-2.
5-2.
Yeah, 5-2. Yeah.
5-2.
I'm not knocking you. I'm not knocking you for your prediction. I'm just quite surprised because you're usually so Tottenham this and Tottenham that, and then to hear, I was like, oh right, okay, wow.
Yeah, I just think the exertions of Munich away, injuries, missing key players. I hope I'm wrong. God, I hope I'm wrong.
It's one of those ones that as the day draws nearer, you're less and less sure about what the outcome's going to be. Because it is a toss-up. It is, it really does depend on who wants it more on the day, doesn't it?
And being in Munich, seeing how hard they were working, I just kept on thinking, God, what are we going to do on the weekend? We're going to be knackered.
I think we've got enough. I think there's enough time. It's not like we went a million miles, did we? We didn't go to Russia or some the other side of Europe. It wasn't that far a trip.
5 days should be enough, man.
5 days, I think, is enough to recuperate. I really do. And I think Wenger's been managing their fitness levels quite well. In terms of, I think Saturday they people were expecting us to have a full strength team. He chopped and changed it up a bit. Yesterday put out full strength. I think you were saying that one of you was saying, the passion. They're not sure about the passion within this squad.
No.
I can tell you what, if Flamini's in there, he's going to want to.
Oh, definitely.
Get stuck in.
I don't doubt the passion at all. In fact, I was saying the 2 games they played this season, they really did step up the passion. But I just say on the day, who wants it more? So generally, what counts. So
I think a lot of guys will want to eradicate last season's 2-1 reverse over there, especially if Monreal or Vermaelen's playing, because I think that was Vermaelen's last game, wasn't it, before he was dropped, if I remember correctly. I think because the next game was away at Bayern Munich, and he was dropped. So there's people. I think they've got scores to settle over there, definitely.
Also, Mo, you say that these guys don't understand it in the way that Vieira and those other guys did, and you may have a point, but still, you can't say that they don't get the passion when we won 5-2 about 16 games in a row. But they must feel something if they're spanking them that hard.
Yeah, true.
And you saw the pictures for the last day of the season at Newcastle in the dressing room, how much it meant, getting forth and overtaking Tottenham. So
exactly.
Let's hope. Anyway, so let's wrap it up now, fellas. It's been an interesting podcast. We've had a break from the behind the enemy line, but I'm glad we come back with this one. I want to say thank you to both my panellists, Jasper and Mo, and I will say it's a good night from Jasper.
Good night, mate.
And it's a good night from Mo.
I hate Tottenham.
Good stuff. All right. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you.